Okay, so like I said, today will be on diversity. Let's do some recap. Okay, we have learned about the different characteristics of living things. Now we're gonna recap on the differences between animals, plants, and fungi. Okay, animals lay eggs or give birth to young alive, right? Either these two. Then for the reproduction method for plants, depends on what plants are. If it is flowering, it will be by seeds. If it is non-flowering, it will be by spores. Okay, so can it make its own food? Only the plant can. Yeah, the plant can make its own food. The animals and fungi cannot. Okay, single cell plants and animals are not single cell, but fungi is, because some fungi, I would say some fungi is, not all. I things like mushroom is not single cell also. Okay, things like yeast, the yeast that you use to make bread, that one is single cell. Okay, so this table basically summarizes the difference between animals, plants, and fungi. They all are different kingdoms. Okay, then we zoom into animals. Let's have a look at some special characteristics of animals. Okay, this one basically summarizes it. In terms of fishes, okay, the outer covering is always scales. It has fins and tail, right? It helps it to swim and balance. Fish live in water and breathe through gills, and they mostly reproduce by laying eggs. There are some exceptions. The exception would be your swordtail, guppy, and molly, because they give birth to their young alive. Okay. Now, the second animal group we're looking at will be birds. Birds' outer covering will be feathers. Okay, what's so special about birds? They have a beak and they have wings. Not all birds can fly, but all birds have wings. Okay, so most birds can fly, most, not all, and they live on land. Okay, they reproduction method will be by laying eggs, and they breathe through their lungs. Okay, now next one would be amphibians. Amphibians have bodies that are covered with moist skin. So the skin are moist, and most amphibians live both on land and in water. So an example of amphibian would be your newt, your salamander, your frog, your toad. Okay, and they also reproduce by laying eggs. They breathe through the adults. Yeah, adults breathe through moist skin and lungs, but the young breathe through gills. I would say that amphibians are the most versatile because they can live on land and in water. They can breathe through lungs and gills. Okay, when they are young, they breathe through gills. When they are older, they breathe through their moist skin and lungs. Okay, so they are very versatile creatures. Okay, now in terms of insects, I think the very distinct, I think there's a blank there, shouldn't be a blank. Okay, the very distinct part is that they have 3 body parts and 6 legs. Okay, they have a hard outer covering and a pair of feelers. Insects can live on land or in water. Okay, I think there's a typo error here. They breathe through their breathing holes, which are tiny openings or breathing tubes for young of the mosquitoes. Most insects reproduce by laying eggs. Okay, so fun fact, most insects have 2 pairs of wings, but some, like the mosquito, only have 1 pair, and others, like the silverfish, have no wings at all. Yeah, so not really dependent on the number of wings, but the number of body parts and the legs are what determines it to be insect. Okay, that's the special trait of an insect. Yeah. Okay, now we move on to reptiles. The bodies of reptiles are covered with dry skin and scales. Now, fish also have scales, but the reptile scales are dry. Okay, and they seem like they have a hard shell through their lungs. Most reptiles reproduce by laying eggs. A lot of animal groups actually lay eggs other than the mammals. Yeah, they spend most of their time in water but lay eggs on land. Okay, now lastly, mammals, which is us. Mammals' outer covering will be hair, right? Mammals can live on land or in water. So some marine mammals like the whale and dolphin live in water. Reproduction method, giving birth to young alive. Okay, the females will feed their young with milk. They breathe through their lungs. Okay, so yeah, so basically this is it. Yeah, so the different traits of mammals. So comparing the animal groups, we have land, sea for reptiles, fish only in water, land and water, land, and some fresh water. Some insects live in fresh water. Things like, for example, mosquito larva, mosquito pupa. Okay, so this table basically summarizes the different traits of different groups, animal groups. Okay, now reproduction method, like I said, if you notice, mostly actually lay eggs, except for mammals. Okay, then the next one is lungs. Yeah, mammals, reptiles, and birds breathe through lungs. There is lungs for amphibians, but they only breathe through lungs when they are on land. Okay, then of course we have other special methods like fishes breathe through gills, the young of amphibians is gills, the insects are by breathing holes, and the adult amphibian breathes through moist skin. Okay, in terms of warm or cold-blooded, oopsie, sorry. In terms of warm or cold-blooded, basically mammals and birds are warm. The rest are cold. Okay. In terms of body covering, I think they are quite different. Hair, dry skin. For reptiles, it's dry, right? It's scales, but it's dry. But for fish, it's scales. Okay. Smooth and moist skin for amphibians, feathers for birds, hard outer covering for insects. Yeah. Okay, now special characteristics. What determines them from others? What differentiates them from others? So the mammals, they produce milk for the young to feed on, right? So they produce milk for the young to feed on. The reptiles do not have constant body temperature. Okay, because reptiles, they basically they're cold-blooded. They don't have a fixed, they can't really regulate their temperature very well. So they cannot stay. That's why you see the snakes, sometimes they stay in like caves and hide over there because their body will go according to the surrounding temperature. Unlike us, no matter where we go, even if you were to go to wintry places, like if you visit Switzerland in winter, or if you go to the desert, the Sahara Desert, which is really high in temperature, our body temperature will still stay like 36 something, 37, 38, you'll be having a fever already. Okay, so we can regulate our temperature, but the reptiles cannot. So what happens is that the reptiles will take the temperature of the surrounding. So they want to keep themselves cool. They will try to hide under, like underground or, in caves and all. Okay. Fishes have fins and a tail to help them swim and maintain balance under water. Yeah. Fishes have a fin and tail. So to help them maintain balance. Okay. Amphibians do not have a constant body temperature. For birds, they have a beak, pair of wings, pair of legs. Okay, with feathers. And then insects is always the 3 body parts and the 3 pairs of legs. Okay, body is in 3 parts. So this is what makes them special. Okay, of course, there are some exceptions. Like for example, mammal, your spiny anteater, okay, spiny anteater and platypus lay eggs, even though we said that most mammals give birth. Okay, but we do have special exceptions. Then we have reptiles. Reptiles like the turtle have hard outer shell to protect its body. Fishes like guppies, mollies, and swordtail, they give birth to the young alive, right? Then we have amphibians, like for example, the Sicilians, they actually give birth also, they do not lay eggs. Penguins and ostriches are not able to fly, even though we say that most birds can fly, right? Spiders, scorpions are not insects, even though they look like one. Yeah, you have to remember that. Okay, great. So now we are going to do the questions as usual. We usually do 10 before we have a short break, and then we play some games. Then after that, we move on to the remaining questions. Okay. So let's take a look at this flow chart. Does it make its own food? Yes. Okay. Does it make its own food? And the answer is yes. So what does that tell us about X? Anyone?
It is a plant.
Very good, Avon. Do I pronounce your name as Avon? Yes? Okay. Yes, X is a plant. Very good. Okay. Next question. Does it have outer covering hair? And the answer is yes. So what does that tell us about Y?
It is a mammal.
It is a mammal. Yes. Okay. So this is a mammal. Does it reproduce its own kind? If it is a no, it means that this one must be a non-living thing. Because why? Last week we learned, right? One of the characteristics of living thing is that living things reproduce. And if it doesn't, it means that this is a non-living thing. Okay. Right. So let's take a look at all the statements. We are supposed to make conclusions from the information. W is not alive. Is that correct? Yeah, it is. Yes, okay, because you see, W is non-living thing. It is not alive. That's true. Z is an animal. Well, Z can be an animal, but Z can also be what? It can be fungi, it can be bacteria, isn't it? It just cannot be a plant. Why can it not be a plant? Because does it make its own food? The answer is no. Okay, so this one we're not so sure. We'll just use the process of elimination. X can trap sunlight. X is a plant, right? So it can trap sunlight. Yes. Right? It can trap sunlight. Y gives birth to young alive. That is right, because we know that this is a mammal. Okay. So since we do not have A, C, D, the answer that is closest will be A, B, C, D. That means we can say that Z is an animal. Okay. Then again, it cannot just be an animal. It can be something else as well. It can be a fungi or it can be a bacteria as well. Yeah. Okay. Next question. The characteristics of 3 organisms, X, Y, and Z, are given in the table below. From the table, which of the following could organisms X, Y, and Z be? Okay, now let's have a look at the characteristic again. Need light to make food? Yes. So X has to be it needs light to make food.
Plant.
It must be a plant, yes. And out of these 3, bird, fern, and mole, which one is a plant?